you, if I have to, I'll even help you buy your first machines or whatever it's necessary. But I I think it's the future. There's way too many kids today growing up wanting to be wizards in the gaming world and think they're going to make their living that way. I'm like, well, gosh, my granddaughter could be an electrician and start an all-female electrical shop doing house wiring and whatever, and be an overnight success, and be a great resource for a lot of women in this world.
So you took this real world skill of welding. You graduate with a degree in in chemistry and mathematics, correct? Where'd you go to after that?
Came to Kansas City and was interviewing. It was a difficult financial time in the U.S. At that point.
About what time would that have been?
74.
Okay.
And Vietnam was just over. Lots of soldiers coming home. Lots of people looking for jobs. And so I happened to be riding down in the elevator in a building on Metcalf after taking an interview. I found a placement service that was giving me interviews or getting me interviews. And I saw on the directory Union Carbide, and I thought, hey, Union Carbide, I know who they are. They could use a chemist. And I got off the elevator, went in, got the job. And it happened to be with the Lindy division, which was both applications in welding and rare and atmospheric gases. And so I started off going to Chicago. The first thing they did was move me to Chicago, a little kid from western Kansas, and moved there to started walking through steel mills in my education process. And I'm just, overwhelmed with size and magnitude of things, and but got a great education. I spent 9 years with them. Realized that I wanted to be in business for myself more than I wanted to work for somebody else. And probably the last 3 years I was with them, I was planning my future.
So what do you mean by that? The last 3 years you were with them, you were planning your future. What was it inside you that was stirring in your heart that kind of was pushing you to a new trajectory?
I have always believed that I'm not sure I put it into words at the time or an exact concept, but I've always wanted to make my way based upon my decisions, not upon the decisions of somebody else. And so that means as much as today's stock market, I don't put my money into the stock market. I don't want good, bad, or indifferent a financial advisor making choices for me. I'll make my own choices and invest in businesses and entities that I believe in. And if I'm wrong, I lose. If I'm right, I win. And that's the way I felt then. I could look around and I could see who were the successful people. And something else I strongly believe in, you are who you hang around with. You hang around with bad kids in school, you're going to be, whether you are bad or not, you're going to be perceived as bad by society. And when you start hanging around with people of financial wherewithal, you start making more money. So it was a gradual step. When I was a welder, I literally did make more than almost any welder that I knew. When I got out of college and was a salesman and a applications guy for Union Carbide, I made as much as anybody in my industry. And I was always in the top 5 out of about 60, 70 salespeople in the Midwest region. But I realized I was getting like a 5% raise, and everybody else that wasn't performing was still getting a 3 or 4% raise. And I'm like, I'm never getting ahead at this. And I kind of eventually put it into words that I want to make decisions for myself, and I'm going to become independent. And when I did that, I kind of went home and told my wife, and we had 4 kids at the time, and I said, I'm not going back to work for somebody else again. I'll dig ditches if I have to, but I'm going to make my own decisions and make my own way.
What'd you do?
I had taken a job with a company in Salina, Kansas, that was effectively broke when I got there. I took a job as president, and didn't was young, and like most young people, you think you have a lot more knowledge than you do, and I went into it not having looked at the books. I got there, and absolutely the first day, the bookkeeper came in and said, "We've got a problem," and I'm okay. What is it? And she's like, "Well, we haven't paid our industrial gas supplier," which was at the heart of the business. We sold oxygen, argon, nitrogen, CO2, all kinds of products like that, used in every factory worldwide, and we haven't paid them for months, and they're cutting us off, and we need deliveries tomorrow.
That was day one.
That was day one.
Wow.
That was before noon. And I'm like, well, okay, who do I call? And she gave me the numbers. I called him. I said, look, I've just taken the job. I'll get a plan together in 2 weeks, but you gotta work with me for that period of time. They did. They gave me just enough to keep us going. And 2 weeks later, I flew to Chicago, and I kind of got down on my knees and begged, and whatever you got to do, and I mean, I say that facetiously. I negotiated, and we reached an agreement. They kept supplying us, and about 2 years later, I'd worked it out of debt. So effectively, I did a turnaround of a bankruptcy without bankrupting, actually going through the courts. But I learned a tremendous amount about that. I did that for a few years, ran that for a few years for them. They did me the biggest favor anybody could have ever done. I was supposed to buy into the business, and they made me an offer. It was just more than I thought it was worth. So when you take it over and it's broke, it's not worth much. When you make it into something, it's worth a lot, and everybody's perception changes. And I just decided I didn't want to work there and be a minority partner. And so I found a company that was a fire extinguisher company that had been very successful, and the family sold it. A couple guys out of state bought it, or out of town bought it, and ran it as absentee owners, and broke it within maybe 2 to 3 years. And that was 1980s, and they were doing 14, 15 million as a successful company, and they just ran it completely into the ground. And so for $3,000, I started that business because I bought the computer. I knew the business, and the computer was a big part of that business, which is the most profitable part, is servicing fire extinguishers. Everybody's got one in their business, and probably in their house. But at least in a business, by law, you have to have it checked, and it's really a gimmick. I mean, you send your man in there to check it with a bunch of tags. You flip the fire extinguisher upside down, you hit it with a rubber mallet, you shake it a little bit and make sure that the baking soda, is basically what it is inside, is loose, and you check the gauge, and if there's still pressure on it, you put it back on the wall, you put a tag on it with a new date, and it needs checked in 6 months, and you charge $25. And so we hired a guy. I did have a partner, one of the guys that was in the business originally, and we bought a truck and hired a technician that we knew how to do it all, and we sent him out a month before all the before all the fire extinguishers needed. So we had a whole year worth of customers. We knew they needed January, so we sent somebody in December. By the end of the year, we were making money, and then that led to banks wrecking. So the bank was owed quite a bit of money, and excuse me, they watched that I could turn it around. There was a food distribution company in Salina that was bankrupt. Heard about it at a cocktail party on a Friday night, that they had made their last payroll, and the bank was closing them the next week. I got a hold of the banker. I knew him, played tennis with him, and I said, "Hey, I think I'd like to take a look at this," and he agreed because I'd been successful. He was my banker at the first industrial gas company, where he saw I turned that around. Then he saw me do it at the fire extinguisher, so he gave me a chance. It was $25 million in business in '84 or '85. and a warehouse here in Kansas City and in Salina, about 250, 300 employees. I closed the warehouse in Kansas City, brought it all into Salina, bought a couple extra trucks, and distributed everything out of there, and made money the first month.
This is a big shift in your life here. This is your reclaiming companies that are on the brink of bankruptcy phase. You have now left Union Carbide. You started with this struggling company that you took over as president. This is a new phase of life you're entering at this point, right?
Exactly.
And you're based out of Salina.
Mm-hmm. And I chose that avenue primarily because I didn't have anybody. Don't take this wrong. My parents were fabulous, but they didn't have any money, and I needed to figure out a way to get into business for myself. And so, what better way than to take over a company that's broke and I can get it for free? I took over 38 companies in 10 years and never bought one of them. The banks gave me 100%. They were all in bankruptcy, and so the bank had taken back the stock and was in receivership, and some of them were still running. Now, some of them I liquidated for the bank, but I'll say about a third of them we successfully ran. I and my crew, I kind of had, that's the same bookkeeper that came into me at the first business has been with me almost 40 years.
Wow.
And she is not even a college graduate. She had one semester of college, hated it, quit. The best bookkeeper, the best accountant money could buy. I've had CPAs work for me. I've fired them. I've had, and they couldn't balance the book. She always balanced the books. Anyway, we went in and, we just didn't have any money. So what are you going to do? You got to figure out how to do it. And one thing I've left out, and my father did teach me this, was that in chemistry and in science, anything a man can conceive of, we can achieve. Now, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in yours, but I'll give you an example of Star Trek. Everybody's watched the show. Hey, computer, what's going on with Star Trek or Star Galaxy 28 or whatever? Yeah, we're doing that today. Hey, Siri, or anything else. So, I mean, you got to think in those kinds of terms. And even the transportation, if you follow physics, which I took, I have a minor in physics as well, you almost have to get through a chemistry degree. So my math is a minor, but I have enough hours to have a degree in it. But so I understand that sort of thing. And we're doing teletransportation right now. They're doing inanimate objects, but that's going to happen one of these days. Yeah. We're not going to get on a plane and go from here to Australia. We're going to teleport. So my point is, he convinced me that if you, Chad, can play guitar, at 65 I can pick it up and play a guitar, and I did.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you I'm good, but I'm not bad.
Yeah.
And Chad, if you're a fantastic chiropractor, I am absolutely convinced I could be a good chiropractor too if I put my mind to it and I practice and I pay attention to what I'm doing.
And hop on YouTube.
And hop on YouTube. So the essence of that statement is, it may sound like arrogance. It's just confidence. There's nothing in this world that I don't think I can do.
So it's interesting to me, like when you came in with all these, I think you said 38 companies, because of them being able to do the math in your head so quick, how much did that play into you being able to see the solution really quickly because of being able to process that?
Within the first day, I knew what our operating costs were in every business.
Yeah.
On an annual basis. And it's as simple as this. I had 3 different trucking companies. I went to them and I said, well, what's your cost per mile? That was the very first morning. We don't really know. Well, okay. How much money did you spend last year? Totally. And okay, do you know how many miles you drove? Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you just divide those together? And that tells you what your cost per mile is. Mm-hmm. Salaries and everything. I want to know it all. And literally in the first trucking company that I took over, I did that. and the previous owner was still working for me, and